So if you're anything like me, you grew up in a world that told you that sex, drugs, rock and roll, dancing, all that crazy stuff was a path to hell and damnation. But what if this weren't actually true? What if these things that are considered a little more taboo or fringe or dangerous were actually gateways to your enlightenment? In today's video, we're going to discuss how these things might actually be a wonderful resource for you. So hey, if we haven't met before, my name is Kalen. I'm an ecstatic spirituality coach. I'm author of a couple of books, and I host this YouTube channel where we explore the intersection of spirituality, sexuality, finding our authentic selves, and cultivating a sense of belonging both in the world and within our own hearts. So a few weeks ago, I was having an interesting conversation with the author Christian de la Huerta, which you can actually watch here on YouTube. And over the course of the conversation, I made an interesting realization that I quite hadn't ever put together before. In his first book, Coming Out Spiritually, he makes an argument that LGBTQ individuals were once the gatekeepers of spirituality for the world, that they were the intercessors between the divine and the mundane. And since the rise of the patriarchy, all of these ancient spiritual traditions have been gone away with, those gatekeepers have been dismissed, and we have wandered aimlessly since. But what I thought was so interesting that came to mind to me while we were talking is the fact that if you look at what are kind of like the trappings of gay culture, when you think of what is gay culture, what comes to mind? And if you're anything like me, the things that come to mind is parties, dancing, lots of sex with multiple people or groups of people, chemically altered states of awareness. And historically speaking, what I find really fascinating is that all of these things have also been used in the context of religious and spiritual ritual. Now, obviously not just LGBTQ individuals enjoy those said activities, but it is a hallmark of that culture. But if we go back in time and look, let's start with sex, for example. Ritualized sex has been a part of many different spiritual traditions, from ancient Greece to ancient Rome to ancient Egypt to ancient India. And the reason for that is sex takes us out of our bodies, it takes us out of this mundane experience of the world, brings us into this ecstasy-filled state where we're connected and united with other beings, where the boundaries of you and me dissolve, where thought dissolves and we are fully pulled into the experience, where we dwell in a state of love and connection and pleasure and bliss, which are all spiritual ecstatic states of being as well. In fact, several different cultures use the same word to describe the state of orgasm as they do to describe the state of enlightenment. I frequently say it's hard to be hateful, it's hard to be jealous, it's hard to be angry and bitter, these like lower vibrational qualities, when you're in the throes of an orgasm, when you're in the throes of passion. Like it brings forward our more delicious and juicy and loving and tender and beautiful and connected energy. You can't help but feel connected to something greater than yourself when you're in a sexual experience with another person or a group of people. Furthermore, historically speaking, there have always also been temple prostitutes, these vessels for God and sexuality, that they would go to a temple and have a conjugal visit with them, and through that receive an aspect of the divine, that they would be your connection to something higher. And of course, you go to the tantric healers in Tibet, there are lots of traditions of sex and sexuality being used as a means to connecting with the divine. Similarly, let's take a look at altered states of consciousness through chemicals, through drug use, shall we call it. All cultures throughout history have imbibed mind-altering substances as a part of spiritual practice, as a part of self-inquiry. Whether you look at soma in India or plant medicine in South America, different plants like ayahuasca, peyote, San Pedro, ibogaine, just to name a few, psilocybin mushrooms, of course, have been used to unite people with something greater. There's the idea that these plants open gateways within ourselves and in the cosmos to connect with spirit, to connect with our guides, to connect with our intuition, with our deeper self, that it can provide a space of healing and transformation and growth. I myself have gone on several plant medicine journeys and have found it to be a tremendously beneficial part of my spiritual practice. In fact, just earlier this week when I was facing a really difficult decision and I said, I kind of feel like I'm tuned into the messages of my spirit guides, but I would like to have an even more clear connection. I took the night to go and explore psilocybin mushroom journey and asks for divine guidance. And whether you view that divine guidance as something out here or something within here, it doesn't matter. It draws you into an altered state of connection. Dancing as well. How many of us have had the experience of being on a dance floor with the lights flashing and the fog machine going, and soon you're drawn into this altered state where time seems to stop to exist, where you start to feel like you're part of a collective experience, that you're part of this hive, this mind meld with the people around you, that you are all one singular organism moving together. Throughout history, ritualistic dance, from Native American communities to the whirling dervishes, pretty much every culture have used dance as a way to draw us into an altered state of consciousness. In fact, in his book, The Art of Losing Control, the researcher Jules Evans says that this need for an ecstatic experience is actually a fundamental human trait, that we all require these times where we move out of our limited mundane self and move into the experience of being part of something greater, being past our mind, being past our body. And people search for it in different ways, through meditation, yoga. War, violence can actually be a form in which certain people seek ecstasy. It's not one I'd recommend or pursue myself, but people do experience a high from that. But so do we through these ways that we've just talked about: sex, drugs, rock and roll, as it were. Now, I'm not advocating for everybody that you should run out after watching this video and go get stoned and go to an all-night rave and hook up with 50 people while you're there. Though if you want to, no judgment, mazel tov to you, have a good time. But it's more to alert us to this idea that something can be good or bad, holy or sinful at the same time. And the only difference is your perspective. One person's tonic is another person's poison. One person's saintly is another person's satanic. There is very little in this world that is objectively good or bad, positive or negative. It's your connection to it. And I think we see this in the very polarized world that we currently live in, where one group of people will say, that's horrible. Another group will say, that's awesome. Let's take, for example, in current events, the controversy of overturning Roe versus Wade and the right to abortion. One group of people say, killing a child is murder. Another group of people is saying, that's not a child, that's part of a woman's body and it's her right to choose what she does with it. That's not murder. Do both sides have valid points of view? Yes. And why I'm stressing this is because of these times we live in. If we can learn to appreciate the grayness, to see that it isn't black and white, but a swirling but a swirling vortex of different shades of gray where nothing is ever one way. It's really only our perspective. If we can really latch onto that and see that, we will help to heal this really uncomfortable time where people have become so radicalized and so staunch in their beliefs that I'm right and you're wrong, I'm righteous and you're not. Nothing is good or bad. It is your relationship to it. Just as you could go and take a handful of mushrooms and go to, a crowded concert and have a really cool experience, but not necessarily the most spiritual one, you could also take that same handful of mushrooms and go sit alone in the woods with a campfire and feel like the mysteries of the universe are being revealed to you. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. And so I want to open your mind to the possibility that these things that are often seen as being antithetical to spiritual growth and spiritual maturation and self-discovery actually can be valid and valuable tools on the journey towards self-reconnection. So I hope this little message is meaningful for you. If you ever have any questions or thoughts, please drop a comment below. I try to respond to as many as I can get to, or shoot me an email. And if you ever have a request for something for me to speak about, feel free to contact me and I'll see if I can make a video on the topic for you. Thank you so much. Namaste.